Good morning. We'll call this special meeting of the Sierra County Commission on Monday, April 12th, 2021. Members of the public are allowed into the gallery, but this is also available on Facebook and KCHS radio. So we hope that folks are tuning in and getting what we're talking about today. Shelley, would you do a roll call, please?
Commissioner Paxson.
Here.
Commissioner Date.
Here.
Commissioner Hopkins.
Here. And we also have Shelley Trujillo, clerk, Dave Pato with Nance Pato and Stout, our attorney, Bruce Swingle, our county manager, Sheriff Hamilton, and Chief Procurement Officer Jocelyn Holguin. Commissioner Hopkins, would you lead us in the pledge?
Sure. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I salute the flag of the state of New Mexico and the Zia symbol of perfect friendship among united cultures.
Thank you. Is there a motion to approve the agenda?
Mr. Chair, I move to approve the agenda as presented.
Second.
Moved and seconded. A roll call. Shelley?
Commissioner Paxson.
Yes.
Commissioner Date.
Yes.
Commissioner Hopkins.
Yes.
Motion is approved. Is there a motion to approve the minutes?
So moved.
I missed that. Mr. Chair, I don't think we have minutes on the agenda.
We don't have minutes?
No, sir.
Okay, so we don't need a motion. Manager Swingle, do we have any public comment?
No, sir, we do not.
Okay, we will move on. We have no consent agenda,
No, sir.
and we have no reports.
No, sir.
Do we have a Board of Finance?
No, sir.
And I don't believe we have any old business, do we?
No.
So we will go to new business, contracts, agreements, and procurement, consideration of Smithco construction change order to furnish and install IT Cat 6 cabling. Manager Swingle and Jocelyn.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Come to the podium.
Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, what you have before you is a change order request from Smithco to furnish and install the Cat 6 cabling for the new building. The total cost for this request is $183,809.28. This change order is a result of Smithco not including this in their original bid for the design build project. And I'll defer to the procurement officer for additional information.
That was the initial change order request cost, and then they sent a second change of cost where they found another person that was lower. The computer's been on the fritz, so I didn't get that out. But initially, Smithco is stating that it wasn't in the RFP, and they're asking for additional costs to do the work. But I supplied a stack of documentation where I believe I did my diligence, and it is in the RFP. But it's a matter of what you all want to determine moving forward, because I feel like I made sure everything was in there for the building. And we had meetings with Smithco, conversations, where they initially said how they were going to lay things out for us. And in the addendums, it lays out the sizes and everything that pertains to what is required for the system, for the internet services. And then we're already almost a year into this project, and now they're saying that they were not aware of it or not part of the RFP. So I don't have anything else to provide except the facts that what you have been given pertaining to this.
Jocelyn, if I may, just to clarify something. The addendum has the design, build, specifications for the main communications equipment and the cabling. I think the addendum was dated February 25th of 2020.
Yes,
And
sir.
that went with the RFP. That addendum went to them before the contract,
Yes,
before the
sir.
3 bids were received.
Yes,
Is
sir.
that correct?
In addition to that, they, in the RFP packet, it has a page where you acknowledge the addendums, and there's a signed addendum that they provided that they acknowledged it as well. And then, everything that was part of the RFP packet and the AIA agreement reflects back to the RFP packet that they have to follow as well. So all that is part of it.
Yes, sir. Attorney Peto.
I don't want to interject here. I just want to maybe help guide the commission, the discussion of this item, and maybe in starting in that discussion and starting in that guidance. I understand that 2 of our commissioners have some sort of relationship with Smithco, and as part of the Governmental Conduct Act, we have the ethical principles of public service, and both these commissioners have come up and explained to me that they have this relationship, and they asked for advice with respect to whether or not they'd be precluded from engaging in the discussion or participating in the discussion of this request for the change order. I responded back and advised the commissioners that full disclosure of real or potential conflicts of interest shall be the guiding principle of determining appropriate conduct, and so but that they're not otherwise prohibited from the Governmental Conduct Act from their participation or the discussion or the action on this item because they don't have a financial interest as defined in the Governmental Conduct Act. So if the commissioners could announce and disclose to the public the scope of that relationship,
Okay.
and that way at least that's there and that disclosure is out there in public, and we can continue to engage in further discussion of this item.
That's why we have you, Attorney Peto.
Thank you,
So,
Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner Hopkins, did you wish to disclose something?
Yes, I want to be completely transparent. Smithco are relatives of mine, and I wanted everybody to know that. Brenda's my cousin, and Twister's my cousin, so I just want to put everything out on the table and let them know where I stand. Or as far as
Can I interject as well?
Sure.
As part of the RFP, you weren't even a commissioner at that time when they were awarded, so it's not like you had any part of that.
I also have a granddaughter who is married to a project manager for Smithco, and I have no financial interest in the Smithco operations or the building of the new administration building.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And Jocelyn, so that I can clarify, this went out as a bid and it was awarded to the lowest responsive bid. Is that right?
No, it was an RFP.
It was an RFP.
It was negotiated.
Okay, gotcha.
Smithco did get the lowest cost in it as well, though.
They did have lowest.
Yes.
Okay, gotcha. Fantastic. Thank you. So in reviewing and maybe in guiding the commission through this discussion, I think that maybe a helpful place to start is the request for the change order and what they're asserting is the basis for their request. So that way the public is fully aware. I mean, I know we all are familiar with the situation, but given that the public is here listening, I want to make sure the public is aware of why we're having this meeting here today and what the basis for the change order was. And as Mr. Swingle had noted, they had submitted correspondence back on April 8th here, and even before that, in terms of correspondence and discussions with administration, advising that they believe there's some sort of ambiguity, or Smithco believes there's some sort of ambiguity with respect to whether or not this cabling was included within the solicitation in the first instance. Yes. And as we've discussed here today, what they've argued that specifically that they asked the county provide a description list of any IT equipment or infrastructure required to be provided by the contractor. The county's response was, quote, the answer to IT was provided in Addendum 1 of the RFP. Actual installs will be handled by our IT department. The problem here, though, is they left off one critical component of the county's response to that inquiry, and I'm going to take a minute to find that in the packet, and I think that's important for the commission to hear. In the response to the inquiry, the county noted, let me get down to my page. I apologize for the delay. I have about 4 documents up and about 68 pages in one of them, so. Okay, Addendum 1. Oh, I need to find this inquiry, gentlemen. Here it was. Please provide a description list of any IT equipment or infrastructure required to be provided by the contractor. And this, again, is in advance of when we awarded this contract. The county responded, the part that they included was, the answer to IT was provided in Addendum 1 of the RFP. Actual installs will be handled by our IT department. Note, meaning connection of computer systems once cabling was complete, as per Addenda 1. So it was clearly indicated in the response to that inquiry and excluded from Smithco's request for change order that we advised that we would be taking care of actually connecting our computer system to the data cabling that was installed.
Yes.
But that they would be both purchasing and installing that data cabling system. Additionally, down in Addenda 1, it's important to note that as relates to this particular item, we note that that they were to include within this minimum of Category 6 for new installations. Category 7 is not EIA, TIA standard, but is an ISO standard, must have an exception for approval. Main communications, equipment room, equipment protection, termination, punch down, blocks, patch panels, grounding, servers, equipment racks, environmental conditioning, lighting rooms, access, etc. Pathways for inter and intra-building cabling. Special power requirements for the desktop or main communications equipment room may be considered. Environmental concerns must be considered. Other considerations, floor loading, and so forth. There were additionally included within the packet that Ms. Holguin provided. There were communications and meetings that Smithco and their representatives were a part of throughout this process. We were provided the minutes from the meetings on September 17th, I think, and the 29th. And in both those meetings, they were discussed that they would be providing both the equipment and the installation. And the response that we've subsequently received from Smithco, it appears they've abandoned their request to charge us again for equipment, recognizing that that was included, but now they're just trying to hit the county up for the installation costs, again, which were included. So the county's in a situation here where it has to make a decision as to, and there's also been a request for a change order as it relates to time. So we don't know how much additional time they're proposing to include. Now, I had a good conversation with the chairman just a few days ago, and we treat the public's money as we would our own. I mean, you all are the stewards of the public trust and of the public's purse. And someone comes to our house and we negotiate the terms of a deal. They're going to install cabling. They're going to install all this other stuff. It's reflected in the documents that we have with them. They come back to us and say, no, that was not part of the situation that was agreed on. Well, if it wasn't in writing, we'd be in a bad spot. Here we have it in writing. And so we would never in that instance say, you know what, gosh, we understand that you guys have presented this in such a way, and you guys are going to take a hit on this, and it's bad, and we would never say, you know what, we're going to reach in our pocketbooks and give you another $145,000 for our own personal our home. Nor would we provide or attempt to identify some other way to provide them more money. This is the taxpayers' money, and we understand that Smithco is fully aware of that. And if there was any basis for ambiguity, we'd be more than happy to encourage the commission to engage in dialogue and discussion, try to resolve it, and so forth. And I still think that maybe it's worthwhile to have a mediation. I propose this to Chairman as well, to request a mediation, see if we can sit down together and share all the documents. They must be missing something, because there's no way that a company would come back and request that we come up with another $145,000 of taxpayer money if they weren't missing something, because from the documents that we've been provided, they clearly delineate that it's their responsibility to pay for both the materials, which again they've abandoned now. They've originally they requested to hit us up for and take an additional $40,000 or $50,000 of taxpayer money for materials that they now recognize were already included within that bid, but also the installation. And like I said, it's clear throughout the contract documents that the commission's been provided by our procurement officer, and that we'd be happy to provide to Smithco as well. That both the installation and the materials are provided. It looks like Ms. Holguin has a burning desire.
What I would like to add to this topic is when on those addendum marks where it states Smithco's going to do the cabling and hardware, and then IT will come and connect. Through the discussions and the meetings that we had, Smithco agreed to do the cabling to drop down, and where our IT was going to come in is to set them up to the computers and stuff, which I would never have asked Smithco to do because they don't know what goes into our home systems. but I did have the meetings and clarified where they were going to come in, where they were going to drop down, and all those were in the minutes and the documents provided. So where our IT comes in on that part of it is just where they're going to plug in the computer systems to and test them to make sure everything works, because we're moving everything to the new building. And in the 21st century, I would not skip the computer system in a new building because it's naturally a requirement that we need to function. So I don't have anything else to add. That's where it
And
is.
Smithco was invited to the meeting, correct?
Yes.
Today?
Today.
Yes, they were. Yes.
Mr. Chairman, I really wish they would have come so we could have talked this through and maybe resolved it in that way. But going back to that meeting at which they had representatives present back on September 16th, it was clear at that point that Smithco was to provide the junction boxes, conduit, cable trays, terminations, cable to IT rooms, an empty rack and IT room. It's all throughout the contract documents. I mean, I'm not sure that I feel like it would be helpful for them to be here to explain to the commission and to me why they perceive this not to have been included within the contract documents, because I'm entirely failing to see the argument at this point. I mean, I just do not see it.
It's also an AIA design build agreement. They're supposed to help us through it with the engineers and the construction as part of the agreement. So that, in the AIA document, it reflects where everything in the RFP is also included, which I provided in the documents you all received. So I'm not sure why they're coming up with this now so late in the game, or if there's another issue going on that we're not fully aware of that might be causing the delay, but I can't answer that for them if they're not here to present.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
Commissioners, did have a meeting with Smithco on Friday.
Yes.
And they apologized for not being able to make it today. However, they had other meetings. And this is senior management from Smithco that needs to be here. And they just had other commitments and couldn't make it on such short notice.
That's correct. Yep. And I think Smithco has done an outstanding job. We've looked at the building as it's progressed. It has met or exceeded my expectations. I don't think this is a reflection on Smithco. It's a bump in the road on the contract, and I have spent a lot of time going through the addendum, and there's several pages of specifications that must be adhered to in the installation of the cabling, and it's in there. It's obvious that it's in there, and I hate the situation that there's a disconnect, and that there were some assumptions made that were not according to the contract.
Can I also include, I would not know what cables we need, like, just by myself. So when we did the addendum and to clarify it, that's when I reached out to IT, and that's how I got the length, the width, the kind of materials that we needed, so that the contractor could be aware of what kind of system we need for our new building.
Mr. Chair, Commissioners, just to kind of follow up on a comment Dave made and kind of a question Dave had was, what was Smithco thinking at the time? And I know that based on the conversation that I've had with them, with respect to the addendum, Section 1 of the addendum is introduction. Section 1.2 is the planning. Whether appropriately or inappropriately, Smithco interpreted that as that was part of the planning process and not a requirement of the installation and providing the cabling. That was their discussion they had with me. Everything beyond Section 1.2 and their estimation was part of the planning.
But as I explained to Smithco that day of the meeting, it's a design build, and of course they're going to plan on where they're going to put the cables. That's how that was.
So, Mr. Chairman, we also have one additional advantage here. We have a third party, the Administrative Office of the DA, that's weighed in on this. So a neutral third party that has no financial stake in this game. And in a correspondence from the AODA on January 21st of this year, they noted that they indicated that that cabling is in fact included in the build out. I mean, so, and that was their expectation as well. And so I think that is something that would certainly weigh against them. I might ask Ms. Olguin whether or not the other proposals we received clearly indicated that they acknowledged and understood that wiring was included, and whether or not that was reflected in the proposals that they submitted.
I'm going to just try to say how I understand it. When I notified the other two offers that we had awarded to Smithco, one of the offers mentioned that about their costs being lower, that they might come back because they, according to their belief, they felt that they covered the entire cost, even though it was a little bit higher. So I don't know, like I can't think on how they're going to decide what to bid or what they're going to think the cost is going to be. So, but that was acknowledged in a conversation when I had let the other bidders know that why we chose to go the route we did, which initially was because of the lower cost and a complete new roof was why they were selected.
But they did acknowledge the receipt of the addendum.
Yes,
did
sir.
not?
All three of them did.
All three of them did.
Yes.
That's,
Mr. Chair, if I may.
please go ahead.
So
Vice
first,
Chair.
I thank you, Jocelyn. And the RFP was strong. I mean, I go on our website, I looked at it. It was a very strong RFP.
Thank you.
And so thank you for that. I think you did do your due diligence. And, you know, having written RFPs before, I understand contractors will find any way to, you know, say that there was ambiguities and there was miscommunications. But I go back to an email on February 9th of 2021 from the project manager at Smithco. And so this is a month and a half ago. And it says, and I quote, as far as the cabling goes, we will be supplying all Cat 6 cabling, including the DA's office, end quote. That's from the project manager of Smithco.
Correct.
And so even a month and a half ago, there was still the understanding that Smithco was to provide the Category 6 cabling. And so I don't know where that misunderstanding came from, when it happened, what happened to cause it to happen, I don't know. But I'm just looking at an email from, again, February 9th of 2021 that at that point they were going to still supply the Cat 6 cabling.
Another thing that because I went on Friday back to the building just to have a look at where we're at, and I noticed that on the addendum it has the baskets for the cables, and Smithco already included those.
And they're installed.
So to me, if they weren't aware of it, why would they have taken that step? Which I find interesting after all this has come up. If you did not know about it, why would you include it in your contract work?
So, Mr. Chairman, with respect to the remedies that are set forth in the contract, we're required under section 14.1.1 of the contract to provide a notice of claim regarding disputes and matters in question between the owner and the design builder arising of or relating out of the contract within 21 days of our notice of the conflict. We received this letter, the most recent of which was from April 8th. And so we're certainly well within that time, since it's only April 12th, within which to provide that notice of claim. And I think that just, if nothing else, but to preserve the county's interests as it relates to this issue and to make clear that we do not agree with their attempt to impose this additional $145,000 cost, or what they've now made a $90,000 cost to the county, that we provide that notice of claim pursuant to section 14.2.2.1. And then after receipt of that claim, they have to submit a response within 10 days. And then the county ultimately renders the initial decision on the claim. And so if they don't like what the county ultimately does, then they can take it to that next level and do what they need to do. I think that'd be a waste of time, and I think that would, it certainly put us in a situation where we might need to make a claim on the performance bond, and to ensure that we're going to get what we paid for and what the public paid for. And we'd hate to go down that route. I mean, what we'd really like to do is achieve some sort of swift resolution to the claim and address whatever ambiguity, might be outstanding, and work with our contractor to ensure that we get the building that y'all paid for.
In reading this contract, I don't see that there is a mediation officer to go to. Is that correct?
That is correct,
Attorney
Mr. Chairman.
Pinto?
So the
So it
contract.
would be negotiation between the two parties?
Well, so as it relates to the notice of the claim, that process again is set out in 14.1.1, and so what we do is we give them a letter explaining why we believe there is a dispute with respect to the installation of the cabling. And in that letter we detail just what we discussed today, those various components that seem to clearly reflect that this was all included within the contract price, and even their tacit acknowledgement by their abandonment of their claim for the equipment at this point, and now just seeking the installation costs. I mean, knowing that it was a design build and that we weren't just buying equipment from them to just
Right.
leave sitting in the middle of our administration building, but instead we anticipated a fully complete project that had septic and that had water flowing, and we didn't say just put the pipes and leave the pipes for the water in the middle of the building along with the at some point it all ties together, and I think we should share this understanding. So we're hoping that after the notice of claim and after they see that we're just not in a position where we can give up $145,000 of taxpayer money just because you asked for it, but instead it has to be reflected that's not in that contract. And so, and go from that point. And once we receive, they're then given 10 days within which to provide a response to the county. If they don't provide a response, then we'll render determination based on our letter to them. If they do provide a response, then we render a final decision, or a preliminary decision, I should say, but a final decision for the county with respect to what our understanding is based on our position and their response. And if they don't like that, then they can challenge that. And as it provides for the dispute resolution, we don't have that box checked that says that we agree to, as a condition precedent to moving forward to litigation, doing a binding arbitration or arbitration pursuant to the American or the AAA.
I looked at the agreement again, and there's a section where it says any litigation or anything like that would be agreed between both parties to be held inside Sierra County.
That's correct. But that provision also provides that we can agree in writing to an alternate form of dispute resolution. So we can say that we're not waiving our right to go ahead and proceed to litigation, but that at this point, we be provided the commission so amenable to sitting down and having a mediation, whether that's guided through by a mediator or not, to help us all to see everybody else's point of view and perspective, and see if maybe there is an ambiguity that we're not fully appreciating in light of our review of the contract documents, whether or not there is some sort of confusion that they reasonably could have, and whether or not there's an appropriate basis upon which to offer some sort of other financial compensation for that ambiguity. But at this point, like I've said, I just simply don't see it based on my review and my discussions with Ms. Holguin and with Mr. Swingle.
Attorney Pato, guide us procedurally. Would we table the request for change order and instruct you to file a claim? What's our procedure there?
Mr. Chairman, thank you for the question. So there would be no need to table the request for change order. We're discussing this in the context of that change order. So what you'd be doing is providing direction to go ahead and file the notice of claim pursuant to the contract documents. And if the commission was so inclined, to also direct that we request or reach out to see whether or not Smithco would be inclined to participate and engage the county in a mediation as it relates to this particular request for change order, to see if we can reach some fuller understanding of what's going on here and why there is this disconnect.
Okay. Well, if I understand that right, we need a motion to file a claim and not take action on the change order. Is that correct?
That is correct, Mr. Chairman, if the board is so inclined.
Is there a motion?
So moved.
So the motion is to instruct the attorney to file a claim with Smithco and see if we can get them to come forward and negotiate, as it were, what we believe is in the contract and what their reasoning for denying the Cat 6 installation of cabling. Is there a second?
Second?
Moved and seconded. A roll call, Shelley?
Commissioner Paxson,
Yes.
Commissioner Day,
Yes.
Commissioner Hopkins.
Yes.
The motion passes as approved. You'll do that expeditiously, I know,
Chairman, I will.
Attorney Pato.
I will, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Do we have any resolutions, ordinances, or proclamations, Mr. Manager?
Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, we do not.
Is there a motion to go into executive session?
Mr. Chair, I move to go into executive session pursuant to Section 10-15 E through H to discuss matters in regards of pending and threatened litigation, personnel, and real estate reasons as listed on the agenda.
Is there a second?
I second.
Moved and seconded. A roll call, Shelley?
Commissioner Paxson,
Yes.
Commissioner Day,
Yes.
Commissioner Hopkins.
Yes.
We are in executive session. Is there a motion that will come out of executive session?
Mr. Chair, I move to come out of executive session and certify that no action was taken and only matters listed on the agenda were discussed.
Is there a second?
Second?
Moved and seconded. A roll call, Shelley?
Commissioner Paxson,
Yes.
Commissioner Day?
Yes.
Commissioner Hopkins?
Yes.
We have one item remaining, and that's pertaining to an interim manager, as Manager Swingle is going to leave us after the next commission meeting and go to his new assignment with the city of TRC. Godspeed and good luck, Manager Swingle.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair.
Is there a motion regarding an interim manager?
Thank you on it.
So moved.
We would like the current county manager, Bruce Swingle, to execute a contract with Serena Bartu as interim manager to report next Monday. So that's the motion, and is there a second?
Second.
Moved and seconded. A roll call, Shelley?
Commissioner Paxson,
Yes.
Commissioner Day?
Yes.
Commissioner Hopkins?
Yes.
Is there any other business before the commission? Hearing none, is there a motion to adjourn?
Move to adjourn.
Second.
Moved and seconded. We are adjourned.